Hey, everybody. Welcome
Everybody.
back to the show. How's everybody doing tonight? We already got some comments going. So, yeah, everybody's like a lot of people's gun seasons kind of wrapped up to this weekend. And um, we thought we'd kind of talk about a little something different tonight. And we got a guest, Stephen Lathrop from Lathrop and Sons is going to talk with us tonight. We're not going to talk about boots the whole night. We got all kinds of things to go over before we get to the boots, but we get a lot of questions about the boots we wore this season, kind of in the hill country settings, and it was yours, so thought we'd have you on. So thanks for getting on.
We appreciate you inviting us.
Yeah, no problem. And we'll get into Lathrop and Sons and all that, but anyways, Dan, have you been out hunting or anything this week?
I've been pounding it. Yeah.
Muzzleloader season, right?
Yeah. I got a sore throat. I got a head cold. It's been nasty out, and it's been hard.
We're all going through a little, I don't know what it is, some kind of sickness in our house right now. So been that fun, not that been fun of a day, but my wife and my boy got it worse than I did. So.
Still seeing some good rut action over by me. I got
really?
Buck chasing. Yeah, I had a buck chase a doe and a fawn past me today.
Gosh, it just seemed like the rut this year just like trickled on.
Yeah, it's just trickle rut.
It has been.
Have you guys? You guys are from Illinois, like kind of what area of Illinois, Stephen? Like, what would you call it?
Yeah, well, we call it southeastern Illinois, but I was going to mention that our second firearm season just opened today, so we'll be in Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, okay. So you guys have like an early one and then one right now, I guess.
Yeah, they do one in November, and then they have this, and then it'll go into a muzzleloader season. But it for us, for James and I, it's been a trickle hunt. I mean, it's the easiest way to describe it for us as well.
Yeah,
and that's good and bad. And if you got a longer window of time, you can get out there and still see it. I saw a big buck actually pushing a little buck out across the wide open field on the way to work just this week. So I expected it to be a little doe, and it was a good buck. And I got up there and was like, that's just a year and a half old. And I mean, he was on him and he was stomping him out across his field. So it's getting pretty serious now.
Yeah.
You guys are still shotgun only, right?
They actually, yes, it's shotgun, but they've got, you can use a handgun or a muzzleloader during that season. So.
Can you guys use like 44 mags, like long rifles and that kind of stuff?
You can use 44, 357. There's a few others, I think.
Like
and
pistol calibers.
That's not really our thing, but I mean, we go out and play around late season, take the kids out and that. So,
yeah, deer hunting Cajun, which I think they're from Florida. I apologize, deer hunting Cajun, if that's not where you're from, but he's just saying that the rut is just now thinking about starting down there. That's where we need to go here in a month, is go down there and hunt. Yeah. Follow the rut down that way. That'd be fun.
Maybe that late season is going to be really good for you.
Yeah, that's what I want to go somewhere after the first of the year.
I don't know anything better than hunting some standing soybeans or corn or lots of snow and really cold weather.
Yeah, yep, that's a great time to kill a big one, is when it's being like that.
Oh, I just love being out there that time.
Yeah, I was looking at Illinois around some public land. There's a lot of public land around there that has crops either close around it or
there's hardly anybody out in the late season too. The hunting gets good and everybody else stays in. I usually do pretty good in late season, so kind of looking forward to late season this year.
I was gonna say, Dan, you usually don't have a tag for late season. This year, you'll get to take advantage of it a little bit, because your guys' muzzleloader tag is your gun tag, right? Like that doesn't count for your.
For me, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I assumed. I wasn't sure though. And is your muzzleloader season just until this weekend and then it's over?
It's still Tuesday.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I could use a bow during muzzleloader though, if I want.
See, that's the way it is in Illinois. You can bow hunt during the muzzleloader season.
Indiana too. Our bow season is October 1st through whatever January 1st or whatever it is, and there's no breaks in it or anything.
We got a lesser weapon rule, so if it's a gun season, you can use a bow.
Yeah,
like rifle, you can use muzzleloader or bow, and a muzzleloader you can use muzzleloader or bow.
Yep. So before I get too much farther along here, if everybody, if you're new to the show, if you got any questions, just leave them in the comments, and then at the end we'll answer as many as we can. And also today, I'll put a link in the comments for y'all to call in later if you want to and ask a specific question. So if you got any foot questions or boot questions, this would be a good podcast to ask. So anyway, also we got this little trend going of having like a news story every show, and I'm going to start trying to do that every week. And then I put the link to the news. In this case, it's a video in the description of the podcast. So if you or the description of the video, and if you want to, look at that after we've talked about it or something, you're more than welcome to go on that link. But anyway, so I think this was taking place. This little tidbit was in the charges were pressed on this guy named David. He's was hunting in West Virginia and killed a really nice buck in West Virginia. And he lived in North Carolina, and he also killed a really nice buck in North Carolina. And it sounded like to me like that was kind of the end of the story in his mind. And he, I guess a couple months later, he got a knock on his door, and it was game wardens. And they started questioning him about his bucks, and he just kind of answered everything honestly and told them, they're at the taxidermist. And that's kind of where they left it. And they ended up coming back that day, a whole bunch of game wardens, like 2 of them from West Virginia, 2 of them from North Carolina. Yeah. And they ended up taking both his bucks from him, and really didn't tell him why or the reasons for taking them. And like all those things do, it drug out forever and ever. And he went to court for it, and then there was no evidence at all. They didn't bring any evidence to the courtroom for him. And it sounded like they delayed the court sentence like a whole bunch of times because they were trying to collect evidence on him, and ended up they just completely dropped the charges. I think
they're trying to do DNA to prove that the deer that he shot in North Carolina was from Virginia.
Yeah, I think that's what they were assuming happened. And the way the story ended up unfolding is it sounded like some people from West Virginia, where he shot that big buck, in that area, had gotten a hold of the game wardens and was complaining essentially that an out-of-stater came and shot one of their big deer. But anyways, ended up they took the cape and everything, and they must have not taken care of the capes, and both deer. Yeah, they took the capes, and then the capes got runt and all that stuff when he got them back. And what I think, and this is kind of the conversation, the way I wanted the conversation to go, was initially whenever they took the deer from the guy before they had any evidence or any trial or anything, they posted a picture with the game wardens holding the big racks, and essentially saying that this guy got in trouble for this and we caught him, and here's the trophies, And do you guys think that's weird that like game wardens do that? Like I see them on the internet all the time, like showing off the big deer that they.
Some people like that because they like poachers to be shamed, but in my opinion, you better have some evidence if you're calling somebody a poacher. And they blatantly called that guy a poacher.
Yeah.
So I think there is some old school mentality. It's going away in a lot of places that are more up to date. The old school wardens used to just target people who shot trophy bucks. I mean, I got a lot of that when I was younger. But the wardens nowadays are pretty cool with you. I mean, the good thing about me is everything's video recorded. So they have a hard time pinning something on me that I didn't do.
Yeah. And Dan, I know you said in the past, like you used to get a lot of, since you were hunting so deep into these swamps and stuff, it'd take you forever to get back to the truck. And you always got like accused of shooting deer late or whatever.
Yeah.
Just because of the time it takes to get back to the vehicle. Gosh, that'd be frustrating to deal with.
Yeah, well, some of these swamps are 3 miles across. I mean, you go out there 1.5 miles, and
yeah,
it could be a long time to get to the truck.
yeah. That kind of sounds like what this guy was running into. I don't know how I feel about that. Like I get the part where you're saying like they need to, like, poachers need to be, penalized or whatever, and that's very true. But it's just kind of weird.
You go a little overboard too, though. I mean, no, I don't like poaching any more than anybody else does. But I mean, this whole pay for it based on the score of the antlers kind of thing. Poaching. You broke the same law if you shoot a spike as if you shot a 50-pointer. Poaching is poaching. They both did the same thing. I don't have any problem with it being a $15,000 fine, but it should be a $15,000 fine if it's a spike or a 15-pointer, right? A poaching one's poaching one, basically.
Yeah. I think that's all based on state. I think the state laws are different for how they deal with that kind of stuff. I mean, I get their theory on doing that, charging more for a bigger deer, because it's like it would be like I don't know, it's like it's more of an incentive for someone to poach, but
what's interesting is I know a case where a friend of mine's niece was murdered. And they knew what apartment she was in when she disappeared, and they were pretty sure she was in there. They couldn't go in there without any kind of warrant or anything, and it took them like 2 days to go and find her, and then she was murdered. And if you're a warden and you think the guy's got an extra bluegill in there, you can just walk in Wisconsin. Wardens don't need any kind of search warrants or anything. They don't even have to give you a reason. They can just walk into your house at any time. And federal agents can't do that. The FBI can't do that. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I wonder what what happened to make that come about, where they could do that.
I think because people would hide evidence or something, before they'd get a warrant. But I mean, you think about this more serious offenses of what people could be doing. You'd think the FBI or something would have more authority than them.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I get the rules. I mean, I get why, officers and stuff don't have that authority, because I'm like everything else that would get, end up getting abused in some cases. And they're probably trying to prevent things like this from happening,
So when I look at that case, I they got a trail, like the people in West Virginia have a trail cam picture that looks like the buck that they claim that he shot in West Virginia that's from North Carolina. Whether it is or not, I don't know. But it warrants an investigation. What it doesn't warrant is automatic accusations and put it in a newspaper and put it on news stations.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's what was weird about it, is them holding the trophies up and smiling and all that. I'm like, man. Anyway, and who knows? Like, you're probably right. There's probably a couple sides of that story too, but I just thought it was interesting.
We had a case in Waukesha County, Wisconsin, where a 14-year-old boy shot a buck in Vernon Marsh, which is a public area, and the losses at the time was. At 14, he didn't have to hunt with his dad, but he had to be within sight or hearing of him. And he was within sight and hearing of his dad, but his dad was in a tree about, I want to say 75 yards from him. But he shot the buck, and it dropped, and he got down, and it was a trophy buck of a lifetime for a 14-year-old kid, especially on public land. He ran over to the buck that was in the water and dragged it up onto the high ground, which is about 20 feet or something. And he was being watched with binoculars by a warden, and they confiscated his buck and put it on the wall of shame as a poached deer because he moved it before he put a tag on it.
Oh.
In Wisconsin, we have what they call the wall of shame, and every time there's a real big poached deer, they put it on that wall. And a lot of people were accusing that warden of just wanting to add another one to the wall. Where I think that would have been a good opportunity for him to just talk to the kid about how you're supposed to tag a deer and you shouldn't touch it, and until it's tagged, kind of thing. And a kid ain't gonna have that rule book memorized. I think again, that was some old school wardens, and that was probably 15 years ago. I think a lot of the wardens now are a lot better. A lot more educated about working with people, at least around here.
It reminds that story reminds me of I don't remember where I heard of that. It was a different podcast or a different, but there's a guy in his hometown that killed a big giant buck like that, and he did it illegally, and now it's on one of those walls, like inside of the office, the conservation office or whatever, and he's so proud of it still that like when people come over, he still takes them into the office and shows them the buck or whatever, and they let him come in there and show people that buck. He's like, you got to see this thing I killed. That's funny. But anyway, someone commented, Dan, about they made a good point about, you're talking about like the different fines. And I think this guy, his name is Josh Jordan. He says he sees the need for different fines because if you shoot a doe to feed your family, let's say, that versus shooting a trophy buck for a mount, it's kind of two different ways of thinking about it. Like, yeah, maybe so.
Yeah, okay, but I mean, if the trophy deer scores 125 inches versus 200 inches, it should cost more.
Right. No, I get what you're saying too.
I think that's why that's why they have a range in fines. If you get a speeding ticket, it's not necessarily an exact amount. Well, maybe speeding would probably be a bad example because it kind of is. But if you break a law, there's usually a range of fine because it's a judgment, based on to what degree you broke that law. That's why it's up to a $10,000 fine or up to this, where I think it's up to a judge or a jury to decide that, this guy was killing that for trophy or versus food. So if the guy hunting for food shoots a deer, poaches a deer for food, and it just happens to have a big rack, well, then he's a that's different. He's still poaching for food. He'd still shoot the first deer he sees if he was doing it to feed his family. And I don't think really anybody's feeding their family anymore by poaching. I really think that with government handouts and everything else, I mean, there's nobody out there starving.
Right. Deer hunting Cajuns, he said we need to start chasing the fentanyl problems instead of the deer hunting problems. But I just that comment reminded me of a story. I used to work with a sheriff. He worked part-time for my dad when I was little, and then I worked for my dad too in high school. And he'd be a sheriff after in the evenings. He was the sheriff, and he came in one morning. He was just in a horrible mood, and I was like, "What's wrong with you?" And he goes, I had to deal with one of your conservation officer buddies last night. I'm like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "I hate those guys." I'm like, "What's wrong with them?" And he's like, "Here I was all night chasing around, people on drugs, or this guy beat his wife up, and I was dealing with that. And I walk into the sheriff's office, and there's John, and he has 8 bass laid out on the table, and he's measuring them out." And I said, "Here I am walking around trying to fix all these problems in this county, and this guy just took a bunch of fish away from an old man that was trying to have a good day." And he was like, I was just laughing. He goes, "Is this what you guys do all day? Is ride your boats around in your 4-wheelers and ruin people's afternoons?" I'm like, jeez. Pretty funny though. I'm like, I never thought about it like that, but it is kind of weird whenever you I was like, I told him, I said, well, there's reasons for all that. Anyway, one other topic before we get dive into a little more of Stephen's expertise here is someone commented on a video a couple videos ago, probably more than a couple ago. I think it was when we were talking with Scott Buckley about how good of a state Iowa is to hunt. And I must have made a comment on the video that not every state can be like Iowa. And I think Aaron Warburton actually brought it up. I heard him say it once, is if every state was like Iowa, we probably wouldn't have hunting, because it's, you need those states like Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin that just everybody hunts, and that's a tradition. And if we lose that, that's gone, That's the point I was kind of making in the video. But I can't remember the gentleman's name that commented on it, but he kind of disagreed with me, and he said if every state managed like Iowa managed, every state would be like Iowa, and everybody would have all these giant deer to hunt. We wouldn't have to wait to hunt them. Like, we had to wait 4 or 5 years for Iowa. What do you guys think about that? You think every state could manage like Iowa? And
no, because the numbers of hunters differ, genetics differ. There's too many differences that affect that. I mean, sure, every state could improve their hunting, but Iowa could improve their hunting too. I don't think Iowa has very good management principles, just like most states. I think they manage by numbers like most states. I think they got big bucks because they have less hunters. I think the biggest thing they do for management is not let a ton of non-residents come in there and kill them all. But I don't think that they do anything really special. It's just they have a lot less hunters in like Wisconsin or Michigan or something like that.
Yeah, and I think they also, their habitat's phenomenal, obviously, but they also, you can kill quite a few bucks if you're a resident. I think in Iowa, I think you can kill a few maybe.
You think their habitat's great?
It's farm country with trawls and
some of the places I've done well hunting down there. You can see for miles and you can hardly see a tree.
Oh, really?
I don't think it's like consistent great habitat. I think it depends on where you're at in the state.
Yeah.
But that's everywhere. There's pockets of really good hunting everywhere. People say, well, Michigan sucks or this sucks or that sucks or Illinois is the place to go. But really, if you're not in the right spot in those places, that ain't really true. It can go right down to the right farm, the right property or whatever. Some places, around my house have incredible hunting if you could get access to it. But you have no access, but somebody could get access.
Yeah.
Then it would be far better than some trip to Iowa, say. It's all dependent on exactly what property you're on and what lives there.
Right. Yeah, I guess I was more referring to just like the Midwest in general is good. Like it's not Florida or someplace like that where it's. That's one of the reasons it's a good state is because it's in the Midwest.
Yeah. Well, it is a good destination because most of the good deer counties. If you go there, you see good deer.
Oh yeah.
And it's a lot easier to get on them than say in Michigan or central Wisconsin or So
yeah.
I think you made a good point.
I think this is a little bit off topic, but it's like a lot of people don't understand how like Southern Indiana doesn't have more deer, and I really don't know what the answer is either. But like, because we have like pretty vast, hill country where they could get away from people. We have a lot of agriculture around here for food and stuff, and
that's one of the first things that struck me was how few deer there were there when I hunted.
Really?
Yeah.
That's That's really surprising to me.
Mm-hmm. If you see a few deer in a sit, during outside of late season, you can get pockets during late season where there'll be 20 deer, all together. But like if you're just hunting October through, December, it's a few deer would be good sit.
5 deer. If I do a week of rut hunting in Wisconsin, I'll see 50 at least.
Yeah. Yep.
So you got to get used to not seeing anything, but the quality is there. Those 5 deer.
Oh yeah.
Be shooters.
Right.
Where I'll see more does and fawns and spikes and forks and.
Right. And it's like everything else, like you were saying a second ago, Dan. Like if you were down here and you're on some, really, really managed, really supreme property, you probably see a lot of deer, or more deer than that. But we don't have like a ton of deer. You guys have pretty good hunting around you though, right, Stephen?
Yeah. I was going to ask you, like, if you go in and you say you don't set all day, so a morning set, we'll say evening, because my evenings seem to be a little better than my mornings. Just maybe it's the ground that I hunt. Okay. Would 4 deer be a good evening in Indiana?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, excellent evening from what I'm used to. But then again, you got to remember, Steve, I think you're hunting a private farm that you guys manage. we're pretty much talking about public mostly.
Well, and I would say then that would be a good hunt. But even some of the private ground that I hunt, I don't think our numbers are great because I mean, a five deer. I mean, there's nights I might see a doe and 2 fawns, and that's it. We this county where we're at in down in here, we've been hit several years. 4 or 5 years back, we got hit and lost a lot of deer. And it was tough.
One of my friends was hunting he's from Wisconsin, was hunting down here, Zank, and he got stopped by a warden, and they just got talking. He asked him about that. He's like, what do you think? Why is there not more deer here? And that's what the warden said. He thought that about 10 years ago and about 5 years ago that we got hit with EHD real bad in this area.
Exactly what happened. It was really strange, but when you see that and having been through that, you're right. It was like 10 years and 5 years.
Yeah.
The 10 year was worse than the 5 year.
Yeah.
At that 10-year point, man, there were guys finding lots of deer.
Yeah. And I can remember when I was younger, Dan, and like my dad would tell me too, like there used to be more deer around here than there is now. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not complaining at all. I love hunting here. I just gotten used to the lack of deer numbers, and I prefer quality over quantity.
Sure.
I don't know if it's a good thing or not, but
when we had a really high quantity of deer, our hunting was way better for trophy bucks.
Yeah.
I would see a lot more trophy bucks. I'd see a lot more deer, period. But when they knocked those numbers down, it got a lot harder to get on trophy bucks.
Yeah. In the woods, he said that they should limit doe killing a while then. And they have this year. They actually took away. We used to have a doe season after season was over, or after regular season was over. They'd have a week of any weapon doe season where you could shoot more does, and they took that away this year. So they're
discouraging non-residents from shooting them too. I mean, they'll let you shoot one if you want to pay like $300 almost.
Yeah, a doe tag here is super expensive.
Where in Wisconsin, a non-resident get a doe tag for $20, and they don't buy as many as they want.
Yeah. Yeah, some of my buddies that were hunting down here, they were like, geez, I said, I guess I'm not going to buy a doe tag. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't either. I'd go shoot one up there if you can get doe. But oh well, it is what it is. I just thought that question was interesting to bring up and talk about. It's something I hadn't really thought about too much as far as like the management practices of everything. Anyway, all right, let's talk about Lathrop and Sons a little bit, Stephen.
So when I wore his boots on the Battle of the Bows challenge when we're up in the hills, I got a lot of questions about them.
It was just it was one of the hunts we went on, Stephen. It was a hill country hunt in western Wisconsin, and we were wearing those boots. And a lot of comments about the Lathrop and Son boots. But so can you just tell us a little bit about Lathrop and Sons and kind of your guys' background? Because I think that's kind of what makes you guys unique compared to other boot manufacturers.
Yeah. So I'll kind of set the stage. Both James and I'm 51 and James 49. He'll be 50 this year. Or maybe he'll be 49. You know how that stuff goes with brothers. You don't remember all that. But we were raised in a podiatry setting, so that's a foot doctor. Our father's a podiatrist. He'll be retiring either this week or next. And we would help assist him medically, surgically, and then we both went to school to make foot orthotics. So foot orthotics are the braces and the shoes. And James and I have both been avid bow hunters since I was 15. James was 14. And we started to want to go on some of these bigger hunts. And what we found out was that there was a need for outfitting some of these boots, getting them fitted up correctly. And we were just helping some friends out. We had no intention of doing this. This was just, we've got oodles of material in the basement. Bring your boots in. It'll be fun. We'll hang out and, talk hunting. And we started doing this for guys. And I mean, it was really helping people. And what we really realized was a lot of this footwear that we were getting, we would start evaluating it and looking at what comes as an insole on the boot. And we knew what we had was like way up here quality wise. So it was just like modifying that fit. So you improve the fit, you improve the overall comfort, the performance. And then we really dove into more of the mountain hunting scene. And then we started fitting a lot of these boots. And then, I mean, we've done it from importing brands and bringing them in from Germany and fitting those boots to guys, to private labeling a boot with a brand. And then we finally, in 2017, just said, we basically have been fitting all these different boots for ourselves and all these people. We decided to start our own brand, and it wasn't easy, and it was frightening. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, that's pretty spooky. I mean, you're shipping boots all over the world. You live in the Midwest in a town of 7,000. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I can hunt whitetail right out my door. And it's work. We took all of our passion and our understanding clinically and moved it into these boots, and we work with a designer and we have a manufacturer now. So it's been a wild ride. Really has been.
Yeah, that's super cool.
What I really love about them is that they fit my whole foot. They wrap around it, and I just getting into the hill country, when I wear a rubber boot or just a generic boot, I come back, my ankles are sore, my knees are sore, my feet are sore, and it just feels like I'm walking barefoot, but I got rigid feet. Is what it feels like.
Yeah. I was talking with a guy today about it, and he received his boots, and he was commenting on the fit. Like he said, the first time I put this in, like I've had some stiffer hunting boots. I didn't really know what to expect. And my wife was watching me put these boots on in the living room, and I put my foot down in them and I grabbed the laces and I drew those laces up. And he said, it's really hard for me to explain what this felt like around my ankle and in the back, like where your Achilles tendon is, like, this portion of the back of the heel and then the sides on both sides, this wrapping. He said, it really felt like like I was putting a ski boot on, like the padding around my ankle. I felt very stable, but when I put the boot on, I felt like I was rocking in the boot, like it rocked with me and it sped me through my gait. It just was very fluid. It wasn't stiff and cumbersome. And this year, just a lot of the hunting, because I never really dove into a lot of late season hunting. I mean, we got some cold weather early, didn't we, in November for Midwest guys, maybe not for Dan up there, but, Josh down here, I killed that last buck on that Friday night before that snow hit. That was the real cold front that hit,
Mm-hmm.
And I was wearing my Encompass, the same boots you guys have got. Same boot. And, I think I may have even talked to you about it, that I, like that first 2 weeks of October, I had to use kind of a mobile setup to just set it and hang and hunt. And I did that move two different times in there on this specific buck. And I was close, got real close to him, but just that there is something about the boot, the structure of the sole of the boot, the density of the outsole on the boot. It's not too hard, not too soft, because you can go too soft and it twists it around a lot. I really enjoyed it. Like, I spent a lot of time, climbing, standing on steps. It really makes a difference. It did for me.
Yeah, I feel like
when you get a customer that wants a pair of boots, maybe he's going on a sheep hunt or something, and he lives far away from you, how do you fit him to the boot?
So James and I have come up with two different fitting options. Fitting option one, I call it a quick fit. It's not listed on the website. It's a quick fit. You get on the phone and we talk about your foot type. Clinically, our experience, I can ask some targeted questions about your foot. And believe it or not, I've identified what I'm looking at. Like, I have a really good idea of the type of foot I'm looking at. And I'm going to be able to sit and make a suggestion on the boot and make a recommendation on a size based on that. It's not 100% all the time, but I guarantee it's better than somebody getting on Amazon and click buy it now.
Yeah, and that's what you did with me. Is you? I'll just like tell you the exact how the conversation went. You got to ask me like, what kind of boots have you worn in the past? And I'm like, well, I've had the Solomon Quest, and I had those in 10s. And you're like, okay, any other ones? And I said, well, I also like the Zamberlan, whatever they are, the guides. I have those in 9.5 or whatever that was. And you're like, okay, yeah, and then you sent me these, and they were like literally perfect. I mean, I didn't have to do anything to them or send them back or anything.
Well, and you bring that up, but think about this, guys. It's just as important. The customer doesn't want to. Who likes to send stuff back and forth, right? No one does. It's a hassle, isn't it? It's just as much of a hassle for us to have the product come back. It has to all be checked. It has to be inspected. It has to be repackaged. It has to be re-inventoried and put on the shelf, and that's manpower. So it behooves us to spend a little time on the front end during the sale to give you that customer service to get you fitted correctly,
Yeah. And that's something you don't get from hardly any other company. And then you said that's the one way of fitting someone. What's the other way?
The other way is to go through a custom boot system process. And recently we've been doing a lot of videos on this stuff, trying to educate people on our different processes. One of the videos they want us to do is who needs to do the custom boot system. I'll tell you what, there are guys out there, I don't care who it is, they want the best. They don't want to mess around with it. They can afford it. They're serious hunters. They want to get it. They want to pay once, buy once, cry once, right? They don't want to go through the process half a dozen times. Custom boot system, or somebody that just wants to do it right, has a closet full of boots and none of the boots fit their foot. Because today you can spend upwards of $400 on a pair of boots, and next thing you know, you've got $2,000 invested in boots over the course of 3 or 4 years, and none of them are fitting you right. The custom boot system process, you purchase a mapping kit. That mapping kit shows up. You step on the mapping kit, outline the foot, and with some photos, we 100% identify the foot with a chart. We get on the phone and we go through a consult. In that consult, you spill your guts about your past boot fit, problems you've had with your foot. We list everything on there, come up with the correct orthotic for your foot. It's made out of this polymer-based material. This is one of the standard foot beds, but we make a custom that's more based on height, weight, arch, things like that. It's all ground and fitted to the boot, or I'm sorry, to the customer, and then we go through a post-fitting consult with them to confirm that everything's right. So you're really taking a boot, modifying that fit like you would if you were going in to get downhill ski boots or hockey skates fitted to your foot. It's a very similar process. They'll match that shell to your foot. And believe it or not, when you get up into the type of boots that you guys are wearing for your whitetail hunts right now, to assist you when you're walking in or hiking in deep to do some of this hunting where this boot's appropriate for you, imperfection in the boot fit will shine because you're dealing with a more structured, more stable boot. The more structured it is, the more stable it is, the less the boot conforms to your foot shape, right? So you get pressure on the foot. That's why you got to get the fit right. But having the structure and the stability allows you to get on the sticks with a harness and stand there for an extended period of time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely notice, like if I wear a pair of crappy boots, for lack of a better word, like when I'm scouting, especially here, if I walk 10 miles, in a day out there, and I'll get home, my feet will just be wrecked, Whereas if
Sure.
I have something like this on, your feet's not working nearly as hard.
No, it's assisting you in your gait, forward. It's offloading it.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah. Some people were asking in the comments about like just getting insoles for like rubber boots or whatever the case may be. Same kind of process.
Yeah, our standard footbed, it can be purchased, and that's an upgrade, and that a lot of guys are doing right now.
Yeah, I'm using my rubber boots.
That's what I'm saying. They're taking it. They're just, hey, I'm wearing lacrosse, or I'm wearing this, or I'm wearing that, and it's a simple pull the insole out of it. If they don't want our team technicians back there to cut, grind, and fit it to their boots, so they can just drop them in, they can buy it as a standalone footbed, and they can cut it themselves. So there's really two options on that. They can buy a standard Synergy. It's called the High Country Synergy footbed. They can buy a standard footbed in a small, medium, and large, cut that to fit their footwear by removing that stock insole out, dropping it in place, or they can purchase this High Country Synergy footbed and the We Custom Fit option. They drop online, they drop their size in, the guys cut it, put it in a bag, pows, ship it out to them.
Dan, can you tell a pretty good difference between like the stock ones and your custom footbeds?
It's like a whole different boot.
Really? Yeah. Gosh, I probably should do that. I didn't even think about that. I just don't have many foot issues, some people's feet just bother them, and mine really don't. But I ought to try it just to see how much more comfortable it is.
You know what?
Bothered me after a week of gun hunting.
Yeah. Well, after all your toenails fell off that one time.
Right.
Oh, jeez. But honestly, here it is. Josh, you don't have problems, right?
Yeah.
But you will eventually. And if you got it in your boot,
right,
you're golden.
Maybe I won't then, right?
That it's preventative, right?
Yeah, probably so.
And look, I'm not sitting here. I am not sitting here saying that it is a cure-all to everything, but I am telling you right now, the material that we're utilizing is proven medically, okay, to help protect the bottom of the foot, to stop blisters and hot spots, to absorb energy, to reduce rebound into the foot. That style of a device, I call this a device, inside of a stiff boot like this, that rocks, is what offloads the pressure on the bottom of the foot. It's what allows you to stand on two metal pegs up there with all your body weight on it, and it distributes it so you don't feel. I mean, we've all stood on steps with rubber boots on and felt how it feels like your arches are bending around that. And the next morning you can hardly walk on them, especially if you got ambitious and did 2 or 3 stands, right? I did that when I was younger because I didn't know any better, didn't really have good footwear. And there's just some unbelievable technology now out there to help the guy that's doing a lot of, this kind of hunting you guys are doing. I'm blown away. And, I guess when I first started, I did do some of it. I did a lot of it on private property, but I was still doing it, right? I was still going in and doing it because I didn't have stands, right? I couldn't afford it. So I'd hop around a little bit. And I guess it was probably brought up to me 2 or 3 years ago that this was something guys were really getting into. And I think it's cool. I think it's really cool. And I can definitely see the need for this for a long period of time,
I can definitely tell, like if I've been hunting in these for like a lot of hunts, and then I go to my rubber boots when I hang my stand, I can definitely tell what you're talking about. Like it's way more comfortable to hang something with these on. But anyway, yeah, no, that's cool. I And everybody's a big fan of Lou from Stealth Outdoors, and Lou is the one that got me in contact with you, and he was really impressed with all the stuff that you guys have kind of put together with your background and everything.
You know, I remember that, and I forget how I did that. There was a young guy that was showing me some of his kit, I'll call it, right? And I was interested in it. It was, and I looked at it, and I think he was talking to me about the silence tape, right?
Yeah, stealth strips. Yep.
I picked the phone up and I called him. I called Lou on the telephone and I said, look, what can you tell me about this? I'm not real sure I understand exactly what you're doing with this. And he said, I'm going to send you some of this out. I bought it. And there was like instructions in there, what pieces were for what, right? And he was really interested in what we were doing. And quite honestly, when he and I were talking, he mentioned to me on the phone that I needed to get a hold of Dan. He said, you need to talk to Dan. I'll put you in contact with him. I'm telling you the truth. He did.
Yeah. Yep. Lou's a good guy. He's on here from time to time.
I grew up real cheap, not a lot of money. I'd rather hunt than work, so I'd just quit jobs when hunting season would come around. And I would hunt wearing tennis shoes, even when I do the swamps. I can remember I would prefer to tennis shoes when I was young over to boots because I was just going to get wet anyways. Walking around with a boot full of water sucked, so might as well just put the tennis shoes on and go at it. And then I wouldn't wear socks because then they would just get full of muck and you got to throw them out when you're done anyway. So my feet would get all cut up from the cattails. And, I had like a $20 steel stand that weighed like 50 pounds and pocket full of screw steps taped up so they wouldn't make noise. And I've come a long way. I'm right now, I like to keep, I'm like a minimalist. I like to have as little equipment as possible. Just exactly what I need to hunt, but I like that stuff to be quality. And I kind of need that as I age. I don't think everybody that's listening to this needs your boots, but I think there are certain people that probably could really use them. And, I was getting knee problems, leg problems, all kinds of stuff, probably because of the terrains I'm walking on and the things I was doing. And it's helped me out a lot. I appreciate that.
That's good. That's what we want to do is help folks,
Seems like you kind of came from the same cloth listening to you talk.
Dude, you're sitting there talking about taping those steps up. My brother and I, just this year, when I went in to hunt this deer, I realized I was going to have to move. It wasn't going to happen if I didn't. And I got up that morning and I walked out in my garage and I grabbed my stand and I laid that out. And I went over to my pack and I dumped everything out of it. And when I mean a pack, I'm talking about this little wool pack. I've used this forever. Doesn't match any of my camo. It's my pack. Are you with me? It's been with me on I don't know how many kills, okay? This dates back to the stick bow stuff, Josh. Okay? Yeah. This is my pack.
Yeah.
I've even got the same material and I have disassembled products that were made out of this wool and I've got it in a Ziploc bag in a Rubbermaid in the basement. So when I tear the pack up, I can get it sewn and patched. That's how that's going to work. Okay. So I go out there that morning. I'm pulling all the BS out of this bag. Like anything I know I don't need is coming out because I'm going in and I'm going to be quiet. So I grab 5 of these steps, the sharpest steps I've got, and I go in with a bungee cord and I'm wrapping this stuff up to where it can't clank, it can't click, it can't, because I know I'm tiptoeing in this spot and I'm waiting for everything to just erupt in there. And I got the sweats just running off of me, right? And I can just snap a couple limbs and I'm sitting up there and I mean, I'm just based and the sun is just burning me.
Yep.
Oh God,
that just sounds like a standard early season hunt to me.
Oh well, it was like it was like October the 14th, something like that. We kind of had some roller coaster, but you talking about it, I look back at this and it was like when James and I started hunting, my dad wasn't a hunter. My mom's side of the family from Northern Illinois. You're right. Illinois, you get up there, they shoot some massive deer up there, but that country is flat as a pancake. The dirt is jet black, and they own sections so big that they just go from one field to the next in a combine. It's big roads like for their equipment. And there's a waterway 2 miles off a blacktop road out in the middle, with brush growing around it. It's insane. But my mother's family up there, they were all, a couple of them liked the outdoors and hunting. I think that's where James and I got it. So when we kind of got into it, we had a family friend that I always thought it was cool. We'd go over to their house and I could see his mounts and stuff, right? And my mom must have figured this out, that I was getting up really early in the morning before school to go and hunt. And I really didn't have appropriate footwear, right? Somehow, I don't know how this worked. I ended up with a pair of my grandfather Lathrop's boots. They were rubber boots. They kind of resembled like a Mickey Mouse boot, but they really weren't. They were much lighter than that. And I wore the heck out of those things. And they had a leak in them from where I ran bean stubble up into the arch of them. So I'd go and hunt and my feet would get wet and I would freeze out basically. And I have to get out. And then I'd come home. And that night when I get home from school, I had a hairdryer and I'd sit there and dry the inside of this boot out, try to patch whatever holes I could in preparation for the next morning to get up early, to go and hunt before school, and then go to school, get out of school. It was my thing, man. I had a hard time staying focused on anything other than go hunting. I mean, I really did. It's a massive part of my life. Like, I mean, Josh, we were talking about shooting. I was talking to you this week about, man, it's got to me. I was successful. I stroked 2 really nice deer, made good shots on, boom, 40 yards and down, right? Doesn't always work that way. I've been practicing 3 days a week. Man, I started getting in a major slump where I wasn't shooting well. It eats me up, man.
Oh yeah, it does all of us. Before we get to the question and answers, we got quite a few questions, but turn your camera up. I can see some tines coming down off the buck behind you, but I can't see the rest of them. That looks like a big deer. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I got that with my longbow.
What's the story behind that guy?
It was the first.
You can turn your camera back down if you want.
That's the first deer that I ever really used any kind of a camera. Like, everyone's got cell cameras and trail cams now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, back then, I want to say the company, have you ever heard of it? I think it was Highlander. They looked like a pelican case, a little pelican case. And they had a camera in them. And these things are about $450 a pop back then. This wasn't a Reconyx camera. This was like a Highlander that took a great big SD card, not the micro card, a big SD card. I popped that in there and I got on that deer. And it's the first buck that I went, bam, I want to hunt this deer and I'm going to figure out how to get it done. And I hunted him wrong and hunted him wrong and hunted him wrong. But believe it or not, he actually taught me a lot. And I learned a lot. And where I got that deer's picture, I shot him probably 400 or 500 yards away. And it was just a setup that I walked into the woods and I went, this has got to be it. And there was no sign in there. It was just right. You could look at the cuts in the terrain, the creeks, the direction that the creeks were running. You could see the density of the cover in there. And it was just perfect. It was a gut feeling, I knew what was kind of off this direction. I knew what was off this direction. And I thought, it's got to be it. And it was. Thank God he didn't walk out from behind the tree. This is a true story. At 4:15 in the evening, it was November 2nd, and it was an east wind. And off to the southeast, I saw a really big deer come off a ridge, and I just saw the base and the beams. And I thought, God, that's a heavy buck. And it came down, and then 150 yards away, he turned and started coming my way. And he was coming through some pretty open timber, which is why I wasn't nudging much farther that way. And I had a pin oak. And you know what, like a water oak, what pin oak, water oak looks, it's just got limbs coming off of them everywhere, right? That son of a gun from 150 yards walked a straight line at me and kept that damn tree between me and him. And all I could see were legs on either side of that tree coming right at me. And can you imagine watching that deer walk straight at you through an open woods from 150 yards? He stayed there. And at 35 yards, he popped out from behind that tree. 35 yards, quartering to me. And that's when my jaw went, oh, there he is.
Jeez.
Walked behind me at, God, I don't know. I think it was 18 yards. And I remember the shot perfectly. I remember he was walking through and I grunted and he stopped because I know people do it. I don't like shooting deer walking. It makes me really nervous. And I stopped him, and I remember coming back, and I remember that string doing this, coming back, and I got right about there, and I almost let it go, and I went, nope, and I sunk it, and when I sunk it, it was gone. I mean, there was no shoot in my brain. I was here, and I just went, zoom, and then as soon as it hit the corner of my mouth, I watched that fluorescent green knock just disappear behind his shoulder, and he rolled 70 yards right in front of my eyes.
Oh, nice.
I love it.
Yeah, imagine that's a giant deer.
And you know what's really wicked about that story is, and I tell people this, you get jacked and energized about that because you share that kind of stuff with people that are like, God, I know, I've been there, I felt that before. And it's like unreal. And you never forget that stuff. Like you don't.
No. My wife is like baffled by how much stuff I don't remember. But like I can tell you, like, very minute details about a deer hunt I was on or something. And some of it's not even stuff that was really successful or anything, It just was like, she's like, how do you remember that? But you can't remember like that we have to go to this birthday party on Saturday, It's like, I don't know.
You should remember what's important.
Well, you don't say that, Stephen. Oh.
You're talking about that trail camera.
Yep.
Way back when we used to have trail timers.
Yep.
You might remember those.
I never used one of them.
So a trail timer was basically a little watch that had a string attached to it. When a deer would walk by, the string would pull out the switch that connected the battery to the watch, and it would lock the time. And people would actually use these to know what time a deer walked past. And it would only work once. You get one time. And I started thinking about that. And I got a camera, right? And I built a box. My dad was building these boxes when I was a kid that you drop. They look like a bank, and when you drop the quarter in, it would land on a mousetrap and blow the box up. And he thought,
yeah, I remember playing with them.
Okay, so that gave me an idea, and I made a box and put this camera in that box, mounted it in there. I made a wooden dowel pin over the top of the button that you press to take a picture, and put a mouse trap on top of it and cut it out so that the spring would hit the dowel pin and take a picture, and then run a string across the trail. And I may have had the first trail cameras ever.
Did it work though?
I took pictures of deer. My friends were all amazed, but you get one picture. And a lot of times I'd wreck the camera because I'd drive that dowel pin right through the button.
And it worked.
Mm-hmm.
My gosh.
What a huge waste of time it seems like.
You look at technology now, and you got to, someone your age has got to be like, what the hell?
I know. That's exactly what
now I won't even go near it. If I put a trail camera out, I won't even go near it because I don't want to get sent near it. And, it's crazy.
Oh, yeah. It's funny, though. Let's get into some questions. We've been on here almost exactly an hour, so I haven't went through all of them, but we got quite a few. Everybody, I left a link in the comments to hop on if you want to get on live and ask us a question live. Just make sure that you have you're in an appropriate spot because you'll be up here on camera, and try to keep it as clean as possible. Yeah, make sure if you like what we're doing, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment too. What's wrong? Oh yeah. Let's
Hey,
there's one.
That it? Ding ding. That's
yeah. I need to get some kind of. I need like a graphic that pops up whenever I say that. Like, click here. I'm not that technical yet though. I'll work on it this off season. I don't have time right now, so let's answer a question. We got a call in here. Patrick, we'll get to you in just a second, buddy. There was a question. How do you guys keep your feet warm? I've used warmers, wool socks. Seems like they sweat walking in and then they freeze in 2 hours. This is from Indiana Sportsman.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Stephen?
Well, this is what I think. I'm not always right about it, but I didn't have a lot of ways of keeping my feet warm. The simple way that matches my style of hunting, and of course, I'm not hiking in 2 miles through swamps. I'm parking somewhere and walking in the depth of 40 acres, maybe, sometimes a little more than that. I'm not riding a quad in to hunt anywhere. I'm not taking my boots off. I'm utilizing a rubber boot in that type of cold environment. And typically that rubber boot is going to be somewhere in that 1,200, 800. And now with this neoprene booty that they've got, that changes things a little bit with inside some of this footwear. But I'm controlling the moisture, and you guys are going to think this is goofy. You need to put antiperspirant on your skin for about a week and do it for about, 7 days every evening. Just wipe your feet down. You can get roll-on. You can actually buy some wipes, wipe the bottom of your feet. What that is there's aluminum chloride in there, and that aluminum chloride is what they use in antiperspirant for underarms. What that'll do is it'll build up in the skin and it'll actually stop you from sweating. We do this big time on guys that are doing high-end, high-altitude, late season mule deer and elk hunts where they got a glass for a long period of time after they built a lot of sweat up in their feet. The other thing that we also, James and I, have a footbed that we utilize for that cold weather, which insulates and actually also absorbs moisture. So it's drawing it away from the skin. Socks are important, but I don't, the sock increases the pile around your foot. So you got more air around your foot, which helps to insulate. The big thing that guys do is they're putting too many socks on, and then they're cramming their foot into a boot, and then they compress the pile. Then they lose the insulation, and now they're freezing. So,
for my cold weather boots, I got 800-gram boots, and I purposely bought them one size too big so that there's air in them, and they're much warmer than tight boots.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah. Some people, and that's a interesting suggestion, Steve. I never heard anybody say
it works.
Put deodorant on. So that's a neat.
That's the first I've ever heard of that. Yeah.
Well,
anyway,
have you ever taken your insole or your sock off and just felt the water on the bottom of that?
Yeah. Something else a lot of guys do is like get a large wool sock, like a really big one, and keep those with you, and then put those over your boots when you're in the stand to give you some insulation from the metal, between the metal and your boot itself. And a lot of guys swear by that. I've never tried that before, but Anyway, there you go. Those boot warmers, I use those in Ohio. Those work pretty well. I took some of those. They're the same company that makes like hand warmers or whatever, but they're actually for boots. I think they're actually made differently too because those are active. All those warmers are activated by air flow or something like that. And so the ones that go to your boots don't need as much air to activate. So,
but it brings up one point, and I think about this stuff like you guys. I'm sure when you're sitting up there, trying to stay, keeping the climate right. There's a tipping point. Like there's a tipping point, and I don't care whether it's I'm bow hunting late season. Like it gets so cold that you want to climatize that release. Like you don't want that release getting in with a hand warmer.
yeah.
When you pull that out, it just starts sweating, right? And then if you do have to grab that, it's brutal, right? Like when it really gets cold, there's a tipping point, just like in your muff, to keep your hands warm. Like when you put your hands in there, you want them to start warming. But when they get to that point that they're getting so warm, you're starting to sweat, you need to get your hands back out of that, right? Mm-hmm. Or you just freeze out. And I think the tipping point with your feet are the same way. Like there's a fine line when that temperature drops. Like where do you need to regulate to stay to where you can make that 3 to 4 hour sit in that really cold stuff? That's what I think.
All right. Let's get a call in here. Patrick, can you hear us?
Yeah, how y'all doing?
Good.
Hey Dan, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
You doing all right? Hey, I called. It's probably been right before our season started here. I don't know if y'all remember or not, but I was talking to y'all earlier. Man, I got a question. So I started the mobile hunting this year, and this has probably been the best season I've had. I still haven't killed yet. Had some close calls. Went to Illinois on a hunt. I was going to go to Nebraska, but ended up going to Illinois, and man, it was really good on public up there. And just jumping around. Well, on my club here where I'm at, I've been doing the same thing, kind of hunting different spots. Well, I had 2 target deer that I was hunting, and one of them got killed. He was the drop tine I told y'all about. He got shot about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Well, I went to hunt my second buck, and our rut just started. Like the big deer just got on their feet like day before yesterday. So, the little bucks, they always start rutting around the 1st of November, and they just get shot up real quick. Well, the bigger deer are starting to get on their feet. I hunted it yesterday, shot right under a really nice 8-point in the morning, chasing some does. Went and hunted them, Thanksgiving Day, I hunted one of those overlooked spots we kind of talked about that was like right by the camp that everybody leaves from in the morning. Saw a really big 10-point on Thanksgiving, kind of just doing a observation sit just to see how it looked out there and what it was. And surprisingly, I saw a lot of deer. So I kind of left it. Well, I hunted it the next day in a spot where the deer had walked, where that 10-point had walked, and set my stand up, saw a bunch of deer. He didn't show back up. So I kind of left it alone until I got a better wind. Well, I went in there yesterday kind of on a whim, just to see what was going on. And I watched him at 50 yards all the way down to 30 yards for like an hour and a half. And the does were just all around me, stomping. They'd see me in the tree. I'd hide behind, hunting out of saddle. So I'd hide behind it, and then I'd get on one side, I'd hide again. And
there's your problem.
Yeah, well, I was trying not, I wasn't moving. The tree was pretty big, but I was.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, you're talking about the saddle?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, where I'm sitting is in a cutover. So, like, the behind me is open woods, and literally behind the woods, there's a house. I can see it from my stand on the other club. So this cutover is probably about 3 or 4 years old, and man, they're in there thick. It's crazy. I just never would have believed it, rubs and stuff. So anyway, I watched him for, like I said, about an hour and a half. He got up to 30 yards, but the doe between me and him saw me when I shifted around the tree, he didn't get nervous. He really never paid attention to anything but her. My question is I want to go back in there, but I know because I've seen him in there twice. I hunted it again today. I probably shouldn't have, but I hunted it. We had a different wind. I changed trees and went on a side where I wouldn't get winded. Didn't see him. Didn't see the does come back in there. They kind of got an idea I was in there because my wind hit a couple of them, but he didn't get spooked, but he knew something was up. So during the rut, I know that you bounce around, during regular season trying to find spots. But if you find a deer like this that seems to be using a spot, and right now the does are really in there thick in this one specific spot. They're always in there. How would you go about hunting that without trying to burn it out? I don't want to burn it out, but I know I want to hit it while it's hot and while he's using it. And we only have probably, so if the peak rut is now, we only have maybe till I'd say the 6th. Usually they kind of lock down, then the 6th they come out, and then our bigger deer really start moving around trying to find those last few does, and then it's just done, pretty much until later in the season when they go to food. So, like, what would your suggestion be? Because I've got another buck that I can hunt. I've hunted his bedding area. I've got tons of pictures of him, not his bedding area, but checking this doe bed for the last 3 weeks. He finally daylighted for the first time. He's like a ghost. Finally daylighted for the first time 2 days ago in the morning. But he's only using on a wind that I really can't get in there, of course, without him smelling me probably. So I mean, I could go hunt that deer, but this deer's pretty good too. That deer's older, but his rack's not as good. This deer's probably, just judging by the way he acted, at least a 4.5-year-old, because he just was, he didn't have that anxiety about breeding the doe. He just stood back, stayed in the thick stuff while she fed in front of me. I mean, if he'd come this side of the brush instead of the other when they left, he's 20 yards, but he stayed at 40 with brush in between him. But that's all. I know I've kind of been long-winded. I just kind of wanted to let you know the whole scenario so that you could answer it appropriately. How would you hunt that, or would you just leave it and just kind of let it ride?
So when I talk about hopping around a lot, I'm talking about when you're not on something. If you're on a buck, hunt them. And I would kind of disagree with you about wanting to sit back just a little bit and be hesitant. You got to go in for the kill. A buck like that, you're not going to kill sitting on the edge, especially with all those does around and stuff. I think you just got to get in there and get it right the first time. So you really got to think about, exactly where you got to be. And if you blow it, go hunt the other deer. But I do think you need to jump in there right away and keep on him while he's there. They don't stay in those patterns forever. I mean, you might breed that doe and there's another hot doe in a different group, someplace else where you can't hunt, and he's gone. Hunt him while he's there. When he disappears, then move on and either try to find where he moved or go after the other one. That would be
I did that today. I've been more aggressive because I start thinking and I go back into those old habits. Like, I need to sit on the edge. I need to stay back. I don't want to bump. But then I remember what you said. Just be aggressive. Go for it. Go for the kill. I did that today because there's a bunch of cane. You got our cane in this bottom is probably the equivalent of your cattails. I mean, it's so thick that, he can't be seen. And I actually watched a deer kind of use it today, a smaller buck. So that I went in there, but man, this cutover, there's not a lot of good trees to sit in. I mean, you got to be still to not get picked. And the only place, and it's actually where I've got my stand, is on the property line because we cut one side and then the other property is old virgin timber. So what they're doing is I feel like they're almost using it like a food plot where they're staging, because the night's always better. And it's right there the last hour. They're staging out there, feeding around in the cutover on browse and whatever's in there. And then boom, then when the dark hits, they're walking right out in this open timber in front between two cabins, because they don't ever get messed with right there. So that's kind of why I'm having to hunt that edge. So at least I have a backdrop, and I can find some trees that can, but I want to kind of get, on him. I guess I could hunt the ground.
Well,
but
the thing is, once you've hunted those trees, the does are going to pick you off.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to come through there sometime during the night. He's going to smell where you walked and stuff, and he's going to figure you out.
Okay.
So that's the moving around thing kind of helps a lot. Or having a bulletproof setup. Like where I'm hunting right now, I've hunted the same spot like 4 times now, but I got a camera and I got the same bucks coming in constantly. Seems like they're there every time I'm not. But what I can do is on a straight south wind, I can get in there without those deer ever knowing I was there because I got reach to them, but they don't come to where I'm at. If you can get away with that, then you're great. And if you got a setup where they're not going to spot you, but if they're going to spot you or they're going to smell you or whatever, going back to that same tree is probably not the greatest idea.
Yeah, I'm done with that tree. I've got another tree picked out. It's not far from that tree, but like you're saying, it's bulletproof. I mean, if I'm, the best way to hunt it is on any west wind, northwest being the best because it blows it right back to where those cabins are. And behind you is a slough. So they just pinch down right in that little corner. I mean, they're not 100 yards from the main road where we're driving in and out, but it's like our cabin's at the very front. And then there's 2,600 acres and everybody goes past it. And I mean, I just watch those deer. They sit there and they listen and watch the cars go by and then go right back to what they're doing. It's crazy that I found that. But I mean, I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for listening to y'all and kind of how y'all are doing the mobile hunt. So,
the thing is when you start hunting like this, you're going to start getting opportunities like you're getting, and they're going to go up. But you still got to you're going to find out that most of the time the buck wins. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we got a bulletproof setup for a reason. And it really gets down to an art of once you find out how to get on the bucks, then you got to find out how to kill them. And I think that's where, I kind of got a knack for that. And I see Josh has that knack too. You look at the terrain and you figure out, okay, I know he's in here. He's coming through here. And you sit back and you don't go in there quite. And you're like, what tree do I have to be in? And generally there's like one spot you get away with. There's like one tree in the whole forest where you could literally kill that deer. And if you're not in that tree on the right day and wind, it won't happen.
Yeah, wind's going to be a big deal in this. I mean, because of the way that this is all laid out. So, well, I appreciate it, man. It's been like I said, my season's been better as far as opportunities for sightings than I've ever done. And I've really gotten away from using my cameras because I've been so dependent on the cameras to hunt that now most of them are dead because I'm finding deer without even using my cameras because I'm just going to these little spots that nobody hunts or has hunted in years. So,
right.
But thanks a lot, guys. Enjoy everything. Y'all have a good season. All right, man. Thanks, guys.
See ya. All right, we got a few other calls here. All right, Tony, can you hear us, Tony?
Hey, what's up?
Hi, Tony.
How's it going?
So I got kind of a question. It's really a complicated one because so I hunt my work, and at work there's 50 bow hunters that can hunt it, and you have to apply. And I applied soon enough because I work there, I guess. But so at my headquarters building, I'm the landscaper there. I just noticed this huge rub right in the middle of my south yard. So as Dan always says, make them pay, you know what I mean? But I figured out where he's at. There's this cattle pasture just south of the headquarters building. And so he's bedding in that, and it's just waist high grass, I guess. And he's just out there on a fence line. He's just sitting there. And out there, they have specific areas that you can hunt and you can't hunt because it's a research area, I guess, agricultural research area. So the thing about it is, trying to think, they got certain places like you can hunt and can't hunt, I guess. And I can't hunt that cattle pasture because they have cattle in there from time to time. And there are trees just to the south of it, like a bunch of them, with a creek that goes right there, like butted up against that cattle pasture. But he doesn't have to go there to eat because up by the headquarters building, there are like a bunch of brassica plots for research and stuff, and like corn stuff and bean stuff, just all sorts of food up there for him. So how would you hunt that if he really doesn't have to go to the trees much? I mean, and I can't hunt the cattle pasture.
Can you get in a position where you can watch them?
I can watch him. Yeah, I can. There's a.
I would observe him and wait for him to be making a mistake, and then I'd move in. When he starts showing trends of going into like moving over to go after some does, and he comes within range of where you can shoot him, then I'd move to him. And I do that a lot in farm country, especially open country. I'll just watch from a distance for a long time until I see a pattern and move in.
Okay. You know? I think I have a spot where I can maybe observe him, I guess, and then I guess move in. Our rut's pretty much over here. It's Nebraska. There might be a second rut coming, but so I might have to wait a while, but I guess that'd be the option.
Yeah, but
there's also
they'll move off.
It's hard with the winds there too.
I mean, they don't stay on patterns for very long. I guess unless it starts getting really bitter cold, then they'll just kind of lock on a pattern.
Yeah, that's another thing. If it starts getting real cold, he may get up and move a lot farther.
Let me ask you this: are you able to walk over there, or you?
So the reason I found him was I was trying to be kind of stealthy alongside of the fence line, trying to get down to the trees because I knew he had to have been coming from that direction, and I ended up bumping him yesterday, and he's a pretty big buck. So, but yeah, I bumped him, and I think he's gonna come back because the trees just get pounded by bow hunters, like just endless. I don't even hardly hunt there because they're like most of the 50 guys that hunt there, they hunt in those trees. So, and I walked through there a few times and I've seen like scouting wise, just see stands in there and ground blinds and all sorts of stuff. So, but
yeah, well, if it's too tough, don't waste your season on it.
Yeah, I guess I do have a couple other bucks in mind. This one's really
nice. And still hunt those other bucks is probably a good idea.
Okay.
In your back burner, but I mean, I've got places where I got a place right now where there's an absolute giant coming through a small property I can hunt, and I'm not even after him because he's not coming through in daylight. I mean, why waste my time? So I just monitor it, and if that changes, I'll move in for a kill. But for right now, he's not coming to where I can kill him in daylight. He's coming through regularly, but it's from 9 o'clock at night till 3 in the morning. You know, you just got to take what you're offered, and that's kind of the reason I was asking you if you can walk where he's at, because you can push him out and then hunt him where he goes. But if the trees are full of hunters, you're just going to push him to somebody else.
Yeah, the day I did push him, though, I guess there weren't as many hunters that day, and so I was glad, I guess. But when I did push him, I probably set up wrong afterwards. I went to a part of the creek that was, because he went back to that creek, and I went to a part that was where he couldn't see me go because the stuff got too tall in the pasture. And I just don't think I pushed the envelope enough, as you always say. I probably should have went up the creek more, but didn't end up doing that. So,
yep.
I'm pretty sure he's probably still around. So,
all right, man. Well, I appreciate you calling in, Tony. We have another guy waiting. So
good luck, Tony.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Hopefully you kill him, man. See ya. All right. Let's see here. All right. One more call in here. Ernie, can you hear us?
Yeah. Hey,
Ernie.
Hey, Ernie.
Okay. Dan, I'm from West Bend, so Washington County, just a little bit away from you. And my parents have a farm, and I got 3 small sections that I can hunt. And I kind of had my rut planned around the section across the street from my house. And there's only south access from the road. And I basically hung cameras in August, and I had a lot of bucks coming through. And but I didn't hunt it until the end of October. Basically, I was going to leave it alone until the 26th and wait for conditions to be right. Well, we got 2 weeks of south winds, and I wasn't ready for that. I do have a lease in Trempealeau with my friend Jeremy that you know, but I didn't go up there as much as I should, and I kind of planned on sticking around home, and I really felt like I kind of screwed myself. And I just was wondering, like, I know you got to have enough spots, but with these small properties, it's like the deer associate the road with danger. Sometimes I can't even make it into the woods, like especially in the morning. Like I literally step 1 foot in the ditch and they're already blowing. And I only hunt it with the wind blowing to the road. And it seems like if I have the right wind, which is good for me, the deer don't come out. It's very tough because there's so much pressure. The farmers in my area, they got a couple thousand acres, and if 10 does come out, they'll kill 10 of them. So it's very hard, very high pressure, so it's, I got to capitalize on my opportunities, and with small pieces, I can't make any mistakes.
In Wisconsin, we opened pretty early, and I think that you're probably making a huge mistake waiting for rut, honestly. If you get that property well scouted, which I would assume you do, living across the street, I can honestly tell you that I have shot the majority of my biggest bucks the first week of season in Wisconsin, not during rut. Now, during rut, I get the most opportunities at deer, but the biggest ones I shoot early. And the reason I bring that up is early you're going to get away with a little more. You're going to be able to get in there a little better with the right wind, and they're going to move around a little easier early season than they do after being pressured all this whole season. And they just get more wiry even when they're not pressured later in the season. I mean, they're just when you see them in summer, in September, they're still kind of on their summer pattern. That's something you don't get, Stephen, because you guys open in October. Mm-hmm. But our September up in Wisconsin is just awesome. Mm-hmm. You really should take advantage of it. And you got to remember too. I mean, I hear a lot of people talk about saving a spot for rut. It's got to be a good rut spot for you to save it for rut. If it's not laid out to hunt for rut, or you have a hard time getting in there in rut, because there's no leaf cover or anything, it's probably not a good rut spot. I've got spots where I can kill real big bucks early season, but I can't kill them rut. And I've got places where I can't kill them early season, but I can kill them rut. You got to really evaluate that property as to when the best time to hunt there is. And the reason I bring that up is because you said that you were getting a lot of good pictures.
From basically the picture started around the 18th. I didn't have any basically bucks at all. Usually it's dead early season. That's
okay. Why I misunderstood. I thought you were saying you're getting pictures.
Yeah. Basically from the 18th of October on, I had multiple opportunities of deer even on patterns, but with the wrong wind, it's like suicide, just going in there completely wrong. Like not even like a slight variation. It's like completely wrong.
Yeah, you can't go in there on a south wind if it's blowing right at them. You're gonna have to wait till you have a wind. You might wait. You might take advantage of like a just off wind and take a property line or something in, or something like that. Try some different ways of getting in there. I don't know. I would have to just, if it were me, it would be driving me nuts, and I'd be staring at the property. How can I get in here? Thinking about it. What can I do? Do I have to make a morning hunt? Do I have to do an evening hunt? How can I sneak in here? And that stuff will drive me nuts until I figure something out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's one-sided access, so that's very difficult. I don't know. I'm going to think about maybe try and talk to some other landowners or get creative. I know it can be done. It's been difficult.
I got same thing. I mean, the one private piece I hunt, which is Dave's farm, has one axis, and the west wind, which is our predominant wind, blows right into the farm. I mean, and it's a narrow axis. So I got to either have like a north wind or a south wind and take one edge. And north don't really work because in the middle of the farm, you got to get around a big water source, and you got to walk around, and your scent's going to blow right into all the bedding. So I love south winds, but I kind of need a straight south wind, which is like what we had today. So I mean, for me, it's a patience game. Wait until I have the perfect wind. And then it took a long time to figure out exactly how you sit that, how you get in there, where you maneuver, and where where your best positions are. And that comes from just trying to force a way and find it.
Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Hard answer, but I can
yeah.
give you.
Thanks, Ernie. Talk to you later, man.
Yeah, bye.
Good luck.
Thanks.
All right. We've been on here for an hour and a half. Sorry, everybody in the comments. I know there was a lot of good questions. We just, I know want to be respectful of Dan and Steven's time. Steven's in the office, I think. I don't think he's even home. So
I'm not.
he doesn't have internet at his house.
It's all right. I'm having a good time.
Yeah. So, anyway, there was a bunch of questions about late season. We may just have to do like a late season podcast or a show.
That would be a good idea.
It would be a good one.
Yeah. Just a full late season one. Maybe we'll do that next week, unless someone kills something between now and then we'll have to talk about that. But anyway, yeah, everybody, there's a link to Lathrop and Sons website in the description down below if you guys are interested in getting on there. And Stephen, do you have anything else you want to throw out there before we get off here?
No, I appreciate you guys inviting us to get on here and talk to you guys, and it's been great working with you. And
who's us? You and the guy above you? That guy with the Sorry.
That's funny. So is it just you and your brother that kind of run the company now?
It's just James and I.
Okay, gotcha. And your dad's retiring, obviously, you said like this week. So
it's us.
Yep. All right. Well, we appreciate it, man. And everybody, we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everybody.